Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for tuning in to Canal Algérie's nightly news. On January the 10th, here are the major headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, chairs a meeting of the High Security Council devoted to the general situation in the country and the situation in the neighboring countries and the Sahel, regretting the hostile actions of a brotherly Arab country against Algeria. Premier Nadir Al-Arbawi chairs a cabinet meeting to examine important files relating to the sectors of industry, agriculture, and communication, among others. The official activities marking the new Amazigh year 2954 kick off under the high patronage of the President of the Republic. The election of Morocco, the head of the UN Human Rights Council, arouses indignation given its blatant human rights violations. And the national football team is already in Côte d'Ivoire to take part in the African Cup of Nations tournament starting from next Saturday. Welcome back. We begin with tonight's major story where the President of the Republic, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense Abdelmajid Tebboune, chaired on Wednesday a meeting of the High Security Council devoted to the general situation in the country and the examination of the security situation related to the neighboring countries and the Sahel. In this regard, the High Security Council regretted the hostile actions from a brotherly Arab country against Algeria. In other developments, the Premier Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired on Wednesday a government meeting devoted to the examination of a set of files related to the sectors of industry, agriculture, irrigation, and railway development. The government listened to a presentation on the progress made in the completion of the oilseed crushing complex project in the province of Jijil, which is expected to be delivered by the end of the first semester of 2024 in implementation of the directives of the President of the Republic to expedite the completion of this important project. The government also listened to a presentation on the follow-up of the progress of the tillage and sowing campaign, which is currently underway in good conditions given the assistance and support measures for farmers approved by the head of state. Similarly, the government listened to a presentation on a project developed by a research team from the University of Sidi El Abbas to treat the water security using ozone technology for reusing it in agricultural irrigation, pending the completion of the necessary economic and environmental studies. In energy cooperation, the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, received the CEO of the Italian company Eni, Claudio Descalzi. The meeting took place in the presence of the CEO of the Sonatrach Group, executives of the ministry, and representatives of the Eni Group. It was an opportunity for both sides to review the cooperation and partnership relations binding Sonatrach and the Italian Eni, qualifying it as excellent, in addition to the prospects of nourishing it in the framework of the agreement signed between both companies. A little over a day separates us from Yinair, or the new Amazigh year 2954. This annual celebration is rich with ancestral traditions where different festivities and various forms of celebrations take place around the country, reflecting our abundant heritage. Under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the official festivities kicked off at the National Army Circle in Bni Messous here in the capital under the slogan Yinair, a cultural treasure and melting pot of sustainable development, during which scientific conferences and workshops took place, as well as different exhibitions, while the ceremony of the President of the Republic's Award for Creativity in the Amazigh language is scheduled for tomorrow at the International Conferences Center, Abdellatif Rahal. Our national community abroad is also eager to celebrate the Amazigh New Year. The headquarters of Algeria's General Consulate in Paris organized in collaboration with cultural associations an artisanal exhibition reflecting centuries of know-how among the Algerian artisans. This initiative was widely hailed and is expected in other Algerian consular representations worldwide. Our correspondent there, Afaf Belhouchet and Ines Killou, depict for us the festive atmosphere.
At the headquarters of the Algerian General Consulate in Paris, an exceptional atmosphere on the eve of the ancestral celebration. The Algerian nationals were welcomed in a magical atmosphere. The Nair Berber New Year is behind the door, and the General Consulate is ready to offer them the due hospitality.
J'encourage et je salue cette initiative du consulat.
I encourage and hail this initiative of the consulate and the council in particular, as well as the associations that have worked hard to hold this event, which I think is very significant for our Berber culture.
Très significatif de notre culture berbère.
Ça fait plaisir أني جيت لهنا القنصل جنرال d'Algérie هنايا في باريس. Ça fait plaisir. Je veux remercier tous les organisateurs.
It's a pleasure. I came to the Algerian consulate here in Paris to attend this beautiful exhibition on the occasion of Yenair. They've displayed some Berber dishes, so I feel as if I were at home.
رانا في الغربة ولا. الحمد لله ça fait plaisir. Merci à l'Algérie. Et j'aime bien l'Algérie. Vive l'Algérie.
في الأوان السيني شمع القنصلة وفرد هينا دوكي وسكوسة جديد.
I would like to thank the consulate and the council for this initiative and wish all the Algerian people a happy Yenair.
الجزائري نربحها فلاس ونربحها فلاس إن شاء الله الجزائري نوكاتي دهدو أسكوس أمقاس أدفكر بلهنا الجزائري نوكي.
The festivities are per se a ritual of joy. The land itself is honored by all this ancestral know-how of preparing all these things. They are diverse and delicious at the same time.
دونك نبيد كرا العوايد تمورث عرن فرق ذاكيا الغاشي نا لي زالجيريان يدي يصلحونا لاكيا كونسولا نبيد عغروم نبيد تغريفين نبيد خير شوكولا الحوال نفرق دونك سلام غاسكواس امكاز اوك إزايريين.
The Algerian General Consulate in Paris did everything it could to offer this charming and beautiful moments to the Algerian community abroad, taking into account the slightest details. It is the beginning of the handicrafts exhibition, where know-how is quite visible, from decorated copper vessels, pottery, traditional Berber dishes, to clothes manufacturing.
On to the operational report of the People's National Army's activity in the past week. In the context of the fight against terrorism, detachments of the People's National Army arrested 4 support elements to terrorist groups during separate operations across the national territory. In the framework of the fight against organized crime and the continuation of the tireless efforts aimed at countering the scourge of drug trafficking in our country, combined detachments of the PNA intercepted, in coordination with the different security services, in operations across the military regions, 61 drug traffickers and averted to them to do 6 quintals and 18 kilograms of processed key through the borders with Morocco, while 8.3 kilograms of cocaine and over 1,200,000 psychotropic tablets were seized. In Tamras, Borjbeji Mukhtar, Ingizam and Janet, detachments of the People's National Army arrested 208 individuals and seized 48 vehicles, 238 generators, 124 jackhammers, 24 metal detectors, 46 quintals of mixture of stones and raw gold, in addition to quantities of explosives, detonation tools, and other equipment used in illegal gold mining operations. On the other hand, 59 other individuals were arrested, and 2 Kalashnikov submachine guns, 31 hunting rifles, 1 automatic pistol, in addition to over 47,000 liters of fuel, as well as 271 tons of foodstuffs intended for smuggling and speculation, and 15 quintals of tobacco, in addition to over 13,400 units of various beverages, which were seized during separate operations across the national territory. Similarly, border guards sorted at the level of our national coast attempts at illegal immigration and rescued 14 individuals aboard traditionally made boats, while 339 illegal immigrants of different nationalities were arrested across the national territory. In international news, we are tracking down the development of the situation in the Palestinian-occupied territories, where the death toll keeps increasing. The attacks are intensifying, especially in the center and south of Gaza, while the humanitarian situation is worsening by the minute. The latest tonight with Melissa Kepash.
More and more Palestinians are losing their lives in Gaza as the situation keeps worsening due to the Zionist bombardments targeting the center of the Gaza Strip. Deir al-Balah was the scene of a terrible strike near a hospital, while Rafah's inhabitants are devastated over the loss of their family members. No less than 14 families died after the shelling of a building. After cleansing the north of Gaza, the occupier is now targeting both the center and south. The Palestinian Red Crescent announced the death of a quarter of its rescuers. More than 120 ambulances were destroyed, and no less than 326 rescuers passed away since October 7th. The health sector has been crippled as its personnel are constantly targeted and blocked from carrying their profession, according to the head of the World Health Organization. Only 15 hospitals are operational. The lack of water and living conditions have become breeding grounds for diseases. The humanitarian situation is despicable, especially that the distribution of aid is facing several obstacles. The head of the U.S. diplomacy, Antony Blinken, is pursuing a regional tour aimed at avoiding regional conflagration. According to observers, the complaint filed by South Africa to the International Justice Court on December 29th against the Zionist entity for genocide in Gaza has immense chances to succeed. The complaint is calling for the implementation of international right, the end of the crimes committed against Palestinians, the prosecution of the Zionist leaders, and the rejection of apartheid.
The Polisario Front was against the Moroccan candidacy to preside the UN Human Rights Council. According to the Polisario representative in Europe and the European Union, Obi Bouchraya Bashir, Morocco has not ratified the African Charter. Let's have a listen to him.
L'élection du Maroc aujourd'hui pour présider le 18e cycle de la présidence du Conseil des droits de l'homme de l'ONU.
The election of Morocco to chair the UN Human Rights Council is a preoccupying development. It proves a dysfunctioning of the UN system either in New York or Geneva. According to the UN missions here in Geneva, it was a political vote, the least to say, far from any respect of their human rights, since Morocco occupies an African territory and violates human rights. It has not yet ratified the African Charter of Human Rights. In addition to the violation of the human rights in that territory, the big Western powers made pressure to exclude South Africa for fears that this country will use its mandate to back the fair causes, notably the Palestinian and the Sahrawi ones. Morocco's election is bound to implement the big nation's agenda and to back the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
This candidacy for the presidency of the Human Rights Council is being opposed by a number of non-governmental organizations and human rights organizations and others. Ines Kullu looks back at the various human rights violations by the Mahsen regime both in Morocco and in the occupied Sahrawi territories.
Morocco is to chair the Human Rights Council, while this same candidacy has been challenged by NGOs and human rights associations, arousing big questions about this election, which would suggest that the Mahsen regime had recourse to the practice that it masters so well, namely lobbying, the use of force and corruption. Because of its status as a colonizing country, Morocco's election is disgraced. The Mahsen regime is unduly occupying the land of Western Sahara, which is the last colony in Africa, exploiting its wealth, perpetrating unceasing atrocities against the Sahrawi people, using torture and arbitrary arrest to harass them, and totally violating international humanitarian law, a repression that does not spare the Moroccan people. Moroccan and international NGOs regularly denounce the repression targeting journalists and human rights activists in Morocco, notably through the use of trials for common crimes, particularly sexual crimes, or through digital surveillance.
كانوا كيتعرضوا لمحاكمات سياسية واضحة في المغرب، وهذا الشيء كيجعل منهم أبطال وكيجعل الرأي العام يساندهم. أما الآن كيتهموهم بالاغتصاب، بالسرقة، بالخيانة، وهذا الشيء يعني أكثر فعالية بحيث كيتعزلوا على الرأي العام.
بقى عمر في السجن الاحتياطي بدون تبرير لمدة سنة وما تعطاهش الملف ديالو، فعمر ما كانش كيعرف شنو هي التهم ديالو، فكيفاش يمكن له يدافع على راسه هو ما عارفش شنو هي التهم اللي عنده.
وملي بدات المحاكمه ديال عمر المحكمه رفضات الاستماع الى الشهود اللي هما في صالح عمر، وفي نهايه المطاف وبعد عده جلسات المحكمة كتقرر الحكم على عمر ب6 سنوات.
ملي كانت كتستنطقني الشرطة ضغطوا عليا باش نقول أنني ضحية تحرش جنسي من طرف الصحفي توفيق بوعشرين. طبعا أنا رفضت لأن السيد عمرو تحرش بيا، ومن بعد ما خرجت المحاضر اكتشفت أنهم قولوني داكشي اللي ما بغيتش نقول وتم تزوير المحضر ديالي. هنا أنا عرفتهم أنهم بغاو الخدمة في الراجل. مني انتفضت قاموا برفع دعوى ضدي بالتشهير أمام المحكمة، ودانتني المحكمة ب6 شهور ديال الحبس يعني بسرعة قياسية. وعلى خلفية هذا الموضوع قررت أنني نغادر المغرب مجبرة.
The Mahsen is accused of using Pegasus spyware to hack phones of Moroccan and foreign journalists, activists and politicians.
كانت مختبرات تقنية خبرتني بأن التليفون ديالي تعرض للهجوم ديال على طريق بيغاسوس، اللوجيسيال ديال التجسس اللي كيسمح بالوصول الايميل، التصاور، التسجيلات، المكالمات، لاي شيء يعني انهم كانوا عبروا كيتمكنوا انهم يطلعوا على كل حياتي الشخصيه.
The NGOs also denounced persistent discrimination against women and minors. Across the country, anger and indignation have reached their climax, with the deterioration in purchasing power, the high cost of living and unemployment leading people to take to the streets and denounce a situation that has become unbearable, demonstrations that are violently repressed.
Another shameful act by Al-Makhzen, who violently dispersed a peaceful demonstration organized by Sahrawi human rights activists in occupied Laayoune in the framework of the international campaign against Morocco's candidacy for the presidency of the UN's Human Rights Council. The demonstrators were subject to violence and beaten by the occupation forces, while the Sahrawi activists were protesting and holding the national Sahrawi flag, chanting slogans demanding respect for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. They tried to distribute leaflets condemning the unhumane crimes committed on Sahrawi civilians, including the occupied Sahrawi territories. While the Moroccan people are deprived of their basic rights as part of an impoverishment policy adopted by the Makhzen regime, King Mohammed VI is leading an extravagant life away from his country for fear of investigation, a real dilemma denoting the big gap between the ruler and the people. Melissa Kebash.
The former king of the poor, Mohammed VI, is now showcasing an extravagant, luxurious life, hoping to build a new royal residency in Zanzibar, at the coast of the Moroccan people. A reality tarnished by international scandals as he fled his own territory ever since the Saharan Escobar scandal, a drug trafficking network that involves more than 200 Moroccan high-ranking state officials. Mohammed VI, for his part, is taking refuge in his luxurious residency at the Seychelles in Singapore, avoiding Morocco by all means out of fear of the American DEA investigations, as he is building a residency in Zanzibar, a getaway for worldwide millionaires. This new facade of his reign is despicable for a people already affected by precariousness, betrayed by a monarch that turned his back against a central cause, a cause dear to its people's heart, the Palestinian issue, knowing that he maintains controversial ties with the forces of the Zionist entity. With a fortune that exceeds €6 billion at the expense of the Moroccan people, already subject to an extreme impoverishment policy alongside the Sahrawi people. As Mohammed VI showers himself in wealth, the Moroccan people's anger is intensifying in the face of such injustice coming from the so-called their leader.
An extravagant lifestyle indeed. Sports now. The national football team is already in the Ivorian city of Bouaké ahead of the African Cup of Nations tournament slated for the 13th of the current month. The Desert Warriors have just ended the training session held in Togo, where they took on Togo and Burundi in friendly games. The national squad will kick off the competition on January the 15th with Angola as part of Group D, along with Burkina Faso and Mauritania. Best of luck to our representatives. And on that note, we end tonight's bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our technicians and journalists.